What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be talking about the man behind McDonald's. He wrote a book called Grinding It Out, The Making of McDonald's. It's a very fascinating story. Now, here's a instance where two dramatically successful people intersect for a small moment in life, and it's just one of those magical moments where they don't really know that they're going to be successful, but they're like, this is an interesting, kind of weird fellow. Well, technically, well, you see. You see what happens. So here's how it goes. Ray Kroc, again, he goes on later to be a driving force in what McDonald's is today. It's, a billion-dollar company from scratch. It's very tough to do, and it's very, very tough, the more I learn about it, to stay in the market because businesses are very competitive. Anyhow, so here's when he was very young. Here's how the story goes. He lies about his age, Ray Kroc, to be an ambulance driver. And while he's there, he notices another guy who obviously lied about his age to get in. And this is interesting because this is all that's noted about this man in the story. He says, he was regarded as a strange duck because whenever we had time off and went out on the town to chase girls, he stayed in camp drawing pictures. His name was Walt Disney. So there you go. It intersects Disney again. Very, very interesting man. He built this company into this monstrosity, and there was a time when Disney was this small company where a quarter of it, about $20 million, was just one ride. It was the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, and this whole amusement park thing was just like this. It was a very risky thing. No one understood why Disney was doing it, and the whole company was valued at like $80 million. It's insane. And now it's like a billion-dollar company doing all this stuff. Obviously, both parties they did something essential, which was make their central theme, their central culture, something that would last beyond their death. And they obviously chose great management and great executives to lead them along that pathway. It's just a very interesting story how this happened, and it's also interesting because I don't think Disney acknowledged Ray Kroc. Ray Kroc saw something in Disney, or at least he thought he was weird enough to mention it in his book. Probably because by the time he wrote the book, Disney was getting pretty famous. It is also very interesting how peculiar this is. That's not to say that it's good or bad to chase girls, because technically it seems to imply in this paragraph that Ray Kroc went out to chase girls out in the town. It wasn't like they both were very weird people and they both stayed in. It was only Disney who did. So that's very interesting, and that's all that was mentioned about that story in the whole book. It's very interesting, very fascinating. If anyone has any more knowledge about this, I would love to hear it. But yeah, it's not the first time I've seen something like this where two successful people, before they became very successful, bumped into each other and may or may not have just been like, this is an interesting, weird motherfucker. And then they went along their own separate, different pathways. But it's also, I want to finish it off with this kind of related story. Warren Buffett recently in an interview was asked about Disney. Apparently, he met Disney, and Disney actually, I think Warren went into the room and met with Disney because at the time he had owned a stock in this company called, I think it was called Capital City, which later got translated to Disney because I believe Disney bought it. I'm not too familiar with the specifics. So I guess he went to meet Disney because he wanted to see if this is still a business that he wanted to hold. He ended up selling the stocks, which was a big mistake because, as you guys know, Disney stock shot off the roof. But it seems like Buffett either chalked it up to it was out of his circle of competence anyways, and his philosophy behind that is if you don't understand it, it's a bad move to say, oh my goodness, I missed out on that opportunity, because if it's outside of your circle of competence, not worth your time. And then the other thing was the other possibility, which he seemed to imply. I don't know if he was joking, but in an interview he was like, oh, it was such a stupid decision. But obviously, Mr. Buffett made tremendous amounts of very successful decisions later on in investing. So one loss, one mistake out of his many mistakes. He just made less mistakes than most people. And so the point of the story was Buffett recounts that meeting, and he pretty much said, well, Mr. Disney had no idea who I was, and obviously I knew who he was, and then he was nice enough to meet with me and talk to me, and it was very interesting. Let me just look up one last thing real quick right this second to see. Okay, so here's an interesting thing. Warren Buffett was born in 1930. Walt Disney was born, Walter Elias Disney, otherwise known as Walt. He was born in 1901, so it was like a 29-year gap, and Disney died around 65 years old, and Warren Buffett's still alive today at 84 years old, as of 2015. So it is very interesting to see that. I don't think most people will be as lucky as Buffett, based on my observations of statistics and surveys on diet, health, and so forth. I mean, a lot of people will live long, maybe into the 80s and 90s, but the chances of doing so lessens based off your dieting habits. So Warren Buffett eats like a child. He eats a lot of very unhealthy food, but statistically, you are an exceptional lucky anomaly if you can do that and survive for that long without heart attacks and all these things. It's been shown through evidence and results in scientific studies on health and fitness, and the size and power of your heart muscle, and all other things like health and dieting, that the better you are at all these, the longer you will live. So don't count on living that long. I mean, you look at Walt, he died from lung cancer at 65. So it's just another interesting, keep in mind your health and preserve it. And again, despite all this, there's also that whole thing that you can be struck by a car the next day or get cancer the next day. You're not guaranteed even 20 years of life or 30, which is very scary. So appreciate your time and live in certain ways like you're going to die tomorrow, and in other ways like you will live until 80 or 90, because that may be the expected life expectancy of some of you guys, or 70 or 60. So what do I mean by this? Basically, there's certain things like appreciating the now and here, making the most of your day here and now, so that if you die tomorrow, it won't be something that you will regret because you didn't do something. And then third, it's just planning for the future in the case that you do live that long, in terms of finance, in terms of choosing to make more long-term good decisions and not making a lot of short-term gains for long-term failures. That's all I gotta say. I kind of went off on a tangent. Anyhow, see you guys later.